Welcome to the recording of our guest speaker, John Crowther. John shares his story with those gathered for the Combined Churches Men's Fellowship Breakfast on March 14th, 2026. We pray his message will encourage you in your journey with Jesus.
So it's my privilege to introduce to you now our guest speaker for today, John Crowther. I've known John for about 10 years and interacted with him before that by my dad. I met John 10 years ago. He was a leader in a program that I was doing with Churches of Christ at the time. He's lived an adventurous life. I've loved listening to John's story and that he would tell us at our group meetings. I can speak, he's a great character, married, got some great kids, great grandkids. And it's going to be great to hear from you, John. So please welcome John.
Thank you. Thanks, Rowan. Rowan was always a good character, so, John, you did a good job with raising that guy. You'd be proud of him. I guess my story starts right back here in, I was pretty good looking. I'm the oldest of four kids, born in January 1959. This last week on Wednesday, I caught the biggest bass that I've ever caught, which was 41 centimetres sitting there on the right-hand side. So I've done my boasting, but it was nothing to do with me. I have an old friend that has about $4,000 worth of rods, and he took me out and pretty well caught the fish for me, but I'm taking the credit. So there you go. My mum and dad were, when I think about the 50s, like the old Holdens and Fords kind of were the thing, and Dad grew up in the Blue Mountains. He loved bushwalking, and he was also part of Outward Bound and as an instructor, so he was a pretty bloke's bloke. I didn't know what that was when I was born, but my mum was also, one of her claims to fame was he was holding onto the back of a truck going through underneath the bridge, the railway bridge at Strathfield Station, and flung off, but there was a broken down car right underneath the bridge and went straight up the backside of it and went over the roof of it and landed on the bonnet. A lot of places we went to, she would tell stories about her, she was escaping some of the abuse in her family of origin and whatever, and so she would go push bike riding. Right, we lived out at Menangle for a while, and she said, "Oh yeah, I came out here one of the Saturdays. I just rode from Strathfield, and I kept going because that's what you could do." And I thought, Mum and Dad were adventurers to say the least, and so they weren't conventional. They were more hippie, and they wanted to explore. They were both adventurer, hippie, explore the world. And when they knew that I was coming, Dad and Mum were also called to, they believed in Jesus enough to go, "I'll do whatever it takes to make a difference for Jesus." So part of that was they had a sense of a call to the wilds of New Guinea, where wherever nobody else wanted to go, they wanted to go there. They didn't ask us as kids, they just took us there. So I realised later that how unconventional this was, that Dad got a job right down in the Riverland, and in that process, it was January and he had to start in an indigenous community way down in the middle of nowhere. And both grandmas, most of my grandmas said to my mum, "You've got 3 weeks to go, you stay here, he goes there." And she said, "No, where my husband is, I'm going." Dirt roads all the way, 3 weeks to go. And I think both grandmas, one being a nurse, said, you're nuts. Anyhow, Mum and Dad set off with a trailer or a ute, a cat and a dog, and I'm in the front seat with my mum, still not yet born. They got to West Wyalong petrol station. Mum came out and said to Dad, "Oh, my waters are broke, but let's keep going because we need to get there." And at Ardlethan, they finally pulled in after another few hours, and they went to a little house doctor, and he said, "You're not going anywhere right now." And so quite a few hours later, I dropped into the world. I put down there 1959 January. It was I'm really resisting the government changing Australia Day because I've always had a public holiday in honour of that being born there in the 26th of January. I put eternity because one of the things I wanted just to be remind us this morning is, you know, when every human being is created, it talks about in Genesis that God actually said, I put a part of me in each human being, and male and female, my image, my spark is in there, and I've designed humans to be with me for eternity. We can get taken out, but the original design, when we think about little kids coming into the world, is they've got a divine spark. And if you think you're a control freak, if your dad was whatever your dad was, you're never going to control the divine spark in a little baby. They will go where they will go. And part of it is designed to actually, if they're going to live well, God designed us to hang out with Him and hang out with others in a healthy kind of world. This is the design for eternity. He didn't invent death. He didn't invent suffering. When He created human beings right back before all that, He said, I want this to be a really fruitful, adventurous kind of life. And something really made that into an absolute nightmare. But we'll talk about that in my own journey in a minute. When I was in high school at Mount Victoria, I'd come back. We'd spent 10 years in New Guinea. The only birthday gift I really remember is this thing here called a machete. I know it's illegal in Victoria, but I snuck it in from Hannonvale this morning. But at 7 years old, my dad gave me one of these. And for a bloke, a boy who was on an adventure, this is symbolic of the wild, the fact that you are trying to subdue it. You know, I'm probably not a really good greenie because I've already wiped out probably way too many trees in my youth. But it reminded me of that when I was in charge of this as a kid, I really felt like I was somebody and something to be reckoned with. There was something in me that symbolises, you know, I can make a difference in this world and I'm in control of this. And yes, there are many scars on my feet and hands, but where I missed. But I learnt not to miss as much as when I first started. Some of life's like that. You know, we all start as kids and we have to go on a journey. Mum and Dad, even though they were powerful in my life, couldn't actually control and contain where I was going to go. When I was in high school at Mount Victoria, I went to a camp. I'd been bullied. At 7, I was sexually abused by a teenager in New Guinea. I remember walking up the hill after playing. It was really good, adventurous play, and all of a sudden it got sexualised. And I remember walking up and feeling like shame was all around me, that I could not tell my mum and dad anything that had happened that afternoon. Somehow I think the enemy called Satan, or his demonic, he's a bastard, he's fatherless, and he wants to just bring pain. And in that afternoon when I walked back home, I had a secret now, the first secret from my mum and dad, which was, I'm not really worthy. Shame is, I'm not really worthy of belonging. I can't tell you what's happened to me, because if I tell you, I will let you down and I will not be able to belong anymore. It's a powerful thing that takes many blokes out, shame. It actually, when we get into something that we can't control, somehow the enemy goes, you're rubbish and you'll never belong. If you tell this story, you will actually be ousted from the clan. You will never belong. And part of the human heart is we want a place to belong. We want to fight to fight. And so for me, at this high school camp in Mount Victoria, the preacher preached, the evangelist, and there was one of those moments where I went, if that's true, I've got another way to live. Rather than trying to stay out of trouble, I'm going to move towards trouble. It says this in Romans 8, nothing can separate us from the love of God. What shall we say about such wonderful things as these? If God is for us, who can be against us? I remember when it was like yesterday, I was about 14, but that was like, well, I can tell you, I can list on both hands how many people I know that are against me at school. I know that this isn't a safe world. And in that moment, God actually whispered something to me and he said, John, I know what's happened to you. I know that you are kind of a personality that goes beyond the line and then realises it, but I am for you. when I read Scripture, that's part of, as I've looked at for the, from 60 years or so, or 55 years from there, that's true. That as I've tested life, as I've pushed on life, that this verse became an anchor verse for me, which is, if God is for me, who can be ever against me? Since he did not spare even his own son, but gave him up for us all, won't he also give us everything else? Who dares accuse us when God has chosen us for his own? No one, for God himself has given us right standing with himself. That verse changed my life in year 9. There's something, I came back to high school and I was hiding everywhere because it was just a really wild jungle in Wyong High. And at that point I knew that something had changed and shifted me. God had said, I'm for you. Will you believe that, and will you walk with me back into high school? At that moment something shifted inside, and for me to be able to go, you know what? I'm going to go this way. I'm going to live out of that truth rather than from the lies that I've been sown into me as a young kid. And it changed everything. Now, great ideas like that in truth, it leaks. There are moments where that hasn't been the case for me. I'm not saying that, when you say yes to Jesus, everything goes away. It's still shit. There's still stuff that comes into your life, you go, what do I do with that? Does anybody really care? I did put RIP up there because I thought that was more religious, but I did write SHIT first and thought, I don't know how safe this group is, but we'll work that out afterwards when I get the feedback. And this is what he says in that same chapter, and I'm convinced that nothing can ever separate me from God's love. Neither death, guess what, at 67 it's a bit closer now than when I was 14, but nor life. Well, there's a lot of stuff that happened to me in the 50 years. Neither angels nor demons, neither our fears, I had plenty of those for today, nor our worries about tomorrow, I had a ton of those as well. Not even the powers of hell can separate us from God's love. For me, as a young bloke, looking for working out which way am I going to live, how am I going to survive, adventurous parents, but that verse then became an anchor for me as I negotiated the rest of my adolescence. And it wasn't that pretty at times. I got to uni and I was split between kind of a traditional church where I looked at the guys who were in their 60s and they were the elders and they looked at boring as and they lived with correcting everything, but they didn't seem to have much joy and they didn't seem to have much adventure in their life. And I'm going, I know, I'm convinced that Jesus is for me, but those old blokes, I don't want to turn out like them. And frankly, now I've got a conundrum. Should I stay at church? Because my uni friends were saying to me, look, there are women, there's a keg on Friday night at Caves Beach. Come, it's a party. Come, John. I'm going, I don't think that's smart. And if I'm going to live like that, I'm going to give away what I think is the truth. But if I go and live like those old blokes at church, I don't want to live like that either. And now I've got a conundrum. Like, how do I live? And I remember just going, is it about wealth? Because I was a missionary kid, so we didn't have a lot of money. But God always provided for us. But, maybe it's about women. That'll save me. The breast of a woman. If I can have one of those, it'll be great. Then I went, and then it says, get money, and then I came to Foster, and I had 3 days, because I had to go and run a camp of young kids, and I went, I'm in between now. I've slid off, I know God's for me, sort of, I don't know how to live. I went on the sand dunes here, just now they put a dump there, so maybe that's what happened, but I was on the sand dunes on a motorbike, and I was just walking up and down the beach, and I went for a surf, and I sat, and I went, I don't know how to live. I don't want to be half in, half out. I want to be full on, but I don't know which direction, because the church seems to say, be an old fart, just sit, try and critique the world. The world's terrible, everything's bad. Then my mates are going, just go and live completely like you're off your nut. I'm not sure that either of these are fit for me. Probably had too much of my Christian mum in me, but anyhow. And then I read this in Ecclesiastes. If you want to read a book about the meaning of life, this is the classic. This is a great book. I opened it, and I'd never heard anybody preach on Ecclesiastes, and I know now why, but I opened it up, and it had the Living Bible in the back of my motorbike. I got it out, And the last day I said, God, if you're real, I need to know how I'm supposed to live. Because I am beside myself. I am living double. And then the first chapter he says this, everything is meaningless, says the teacher, completely meaningless. I go, great, here we go. What am I going to do with that? Then what do people get for all the hard work under the sun? And I thought, wow, okay. It's true, isn't it? Like everything under the sun, I would go, if you look at the world map at the moment, and you look at the news, you look at anything, you go under the sun, that big thing that woke up this morning and gave us light, under the sun, if you try and make a system to design to make it really good, you will fail every time. It doesn't work that way. Under the sun, this 3,000-year-old text is saying, at some level you'll get to the point where you go, my marriage is meaningless. My kids, I've given them everything and they're gone nuts. My grandkids, they're so anxious about whether the sun will come up. Under the sun, it is meaningless. Sometimes the church forgets to say, it's not just Jesus is the answer. The question is life meaningless? Don't pretend it is. It's not all meaningful. Even in church, it's not all. Every day is a great day. It's not true. There are things that come. We just prayed for a guy who's probably lived faithfully for Jesus for 40, 50 years, and now is on his deathbed. Meaninglessness in under the sun, this author is saying, it's the reality of every human being if they're honest. And then I read this part of Ecclesiastes 11. It says this, young man, it's wonderful to be young. Enjoy every minute of it. Do all you want to. Take everything in. But realise that you must give an account to God for everything you do. My dad called me in when I was 18. I wasn't actually in an intimate relationship with a girl from school, but we were bushwalking and we were talking, and she was very, very attractive and intelligent, which was the two things I was looking for. And he brought me into the room. I still remember it. He goes, John, I need to have a word to you. I go, uh-oh. Dad had a word in the bedroom and shut the door. I went, this is going to be great. He said, well, John, you know what? Your mum and I, we've lived life with an adventure. We've actually showed you about Jesus. I remember still at Sunday school in year 8, we were doing a study, and I'm the expert because I'm the missionary kid and the pastor's kid, and I'm a pain in the... And so I know everything. And I just remember they finally got a curriculum that said, a rebel with a cause. And I went, oh, come on, this might be a bit better than some of those old stories. A rebel with a cause. So Dad sat down and he just said this, son, for 18 years, we've tried to model something, we've tried to show you the truth, we've taught you about Jesus, but from today, I'm giving you the keys to your own life. You have the privilege of doing whatever you want. So there's the privilege. And here's the responsibility part, son. When you make bad mistakes, we're not paying for them. Oh, right, Dad. I went, yeah, freedom. Uh-oh, no, not... I walked out the door, and like any wise thing, it's like it takes a few whiles so I can live, like in this verse, go for it. Live life on the wild side. Do the adventure life. Do not get to the end of your life and go, I wish, I wish, I wish. Don't live with regrets. But remember, you've got responsibility. One day, God, you're going to give an account for how you've lived. And this morning, I just want to go, I think there's been what I've wrestled with for the last 50 years. I want to live life. I want to be bold and courageous, and I want to learn how to love like nobody's business. But it is an adventure, and it is a battle to live that way, because sometimes I've been tempted to go, I give up, just go with my mates and do whatever the hell they do. But it doesn't bring you joy. It encapsulates you. Here's a quote that I just want you to walk away with this morning. I've tested this over 20 years. This was us in New Guinea when we were young. Mary and I were only married 2 years, and we spent 5 days on the Yapsi River that goes into the Pacific. But here's the three things that I think are true. Men want a battle to fight, an adventure to live, and a beauty to rescue. I don't know about rescuing. My beauty doesn't need rescuing, but she needs to be loved well. And that's taken so far 45 years, and probably a few more years before I get this before I get to heaven and face Jesus for how I've treated my wife. That is what is written in their hearts. That is what little boys play at, and that's what men's movies are about. A battle to fight, an adventure to live, and a beauty to rescue. And I want to say this morning, it's not a guilt thing. Whenever I've come back and been honest about the meaninglessness that's crept back into my life, I go back to some of this quote and I go, I've got my eyes on myself. It's all about me again, and I'm going down through the spiral, and I know that God has given me a battle to fight, and that is to be the best lover I can be before I get to heaven. It's now not so much what I do, it's who I'm becoming. It's a different way of thinking about life. If you want to read something about how I moved from Newcastle chasing Marianne, who's the only girl that got on the back of my motorbike that said I don't know whether I could confess it, I should turn the mic off, but at 80 miles an hour, she said to me, "Does this go any quicker?" I'm going to marry that girl. But she's a daredevil in herself. But I moved from everywhere and I went to chase her in Adelaide, and she wasn't that impressed with my brawn, my beauty, and my wisdom. I had to work really hard. But I remember on the hills of Adelaide, again away from all my family, all of my friends, I was just chasing a job and a girl. And I remember getting my Living Bible out again and going, "God, I'm disorientated. I have no idea what to do here. I'm feeling the rejections too much, and how do I live?" And this came to me, and I just want you to hear it. Wherever your circumstance is right now, "Oh Lord, you've examined my heart and you know everything about me. You know when I sit down or stand up. You know my thoughts even when I'm far away. You see me when I travel and when I rest at home. You know everything I do." There was a trendy song that said, God's far away, but actually the God in the Bible is intimately connected to your life from the day you were born. He had his image in you. He wants you to live an adventurous life. He wants you to battle with the enemy and darkness and anxiety. He wants you to know that you're loved, and he wants to know that you are deeply held in him. Going backwards here. Can I go back again, Aaron? Sorry about that. That one there. That one. That was Marianne and I in 1980-something. We don't even talk about 19 seems so old now. I thought it was really up there. But Marianne and I finally wooed her enough to marry her. And 2 years later, we're off for an adventure where I'm taking my bride back to PNG, where I grew up for 10 years. And instead of doing it the regular way, we're in Adelaide. I'm a cheapskate. I have a bit of Scottish in me. And so we hitchhiked from Adelaide to Brisbane to get so we could get a bit closer, so we got a cheaper airfare to get to the mission field. And this was us saying goodbye to Marianne's mum and dad, and the tears were there. But the adventure of life, if you're doing an adventure with God, you have to get to the point where you go, this adventure, I'm not sure I want to go on anymore, because it didn't work out how I wanted it to. And this is the adventure I'm inviting you again to say, whatever your age, God, while you've got breath, you've got an adventure to walk with him and to be able to fight for him in wherever God has placed you. That's now 40-something years ago. Can't even recognise myself. Marianne's still as good looking as the day I met her, but there's something about that says to me, you've got to go on the adventure, and if you're living so safely you've got no adventure left, you're on the wrong track. You need to say, sorry God, where do you want me? Let me get on with whatever it is that I'm going to be about. In Psalm 139, Rowan, tell me when I need to slow down and stop, but it says that in that psalm, that same sitting on the hills of Adelaide, if I ride the wings of the morning, if I dwell by the furthest oceans, even when there your hand will guide me and your strength will support me. If I could ask the darkness to hide me and the light around me to become night, even in the darkness, I cannot hide from you. To you, the night shines as bright as day. Darkness and light are the same to you. In my shame of being abused and hiding that for I didn't tell my parents till I was in my 40s, I felt like I lived in darkness. There was a part of my soul that never could be alive. It couldn't be fully open to the light because I had a part of it. It was like an eclipse of my soul in my heart, to the point where even though other people went, oh, you did a great job, I was a pastor, I was this, I was that, but it all didn't matter. At the end of the day, there was a part of me that wasn't fully alive. And at that point, God invited me to a 10-day retreat because he knew it would take that long to break me. And halfway through that retreat, the psychologist and pastor said, in the next 2 days, we're going to stop all the lectures and you are going to have an hour to tell your real story. I do not want PG. I do not want G. I don't want the testimony. I want you to tell that group of men in that circle what life was really like. What was the stuff that took you out? What's still taking you out? Power, money and sex. One of those three themes will be in your story. And God is a gentleman. He won't bust that out. He will invite you to release that bit of your eclipse to him and go, I don't know what to do with this as part of the adventure. It's too hard. Maybe I just resolve the fact that I'm a sexual pervert for the rest of my life. And God says, no, my image is in you. I don't want you to live like that. When I died on the cross, I didn't just go, you are an absolutely woeful sinner. He said, I love you, John, and I love that part of you, and I want you to redeem that little grey shadow that's been on your soul for the whole of your young life. I want you to live in freedom. Shame is not something I invented. And at that moment where I was absolutely trembling when I had to go for the first time, I told lots of my testimony, I can do that. But when he said, don't want you just G version, I want you to tell the truth. What took you out? What are you still hiding from your wife? What are you looking at when nobody's looking? And my religious background says, I've got to hide that from God because he hates sin. And all of a sudden it dawned on me through that journey that when I come and confess, God says, I'm not an angry, far away God. I'm your heavenly dad and you are my son. And you are cherished, all of you. Not just your Christian bit. All of you is cherished and the work has been done. I don't see you as a pervert sinner, power-hungry, whatever dropkick. I see you as my son. I'm asking you, will you live for me? Will you live out of being a son of mine that's completely forgiven and free, or will you continue to go back to the piggery and live amongst pigs and live like a pig? That's not how I designed you. I want you to live as my son. I want you to know that you can look into my eyes and go, well done. I'm proud of you, son. You've had a crack. You've had a fight. You're fighting for something worth fighting for. You're on an adventure and you're learning to love me and those around you. And today, as I come towards the last few minutes, you can nod me, but there are too many men in Australia that are living with a shadow over part of their soul, and they're at church and they're faithful, but something happened way back there that crunched them to the point where the enemy's going, take that one out. He's not going to influence his grandkids. He's not going to actually stand up and actually go, I'm a failed lover, but I know that my identity is not because of my performance, but because I have a Father in heaven who designed me to fly and to be lived for eternity. That's the one I'm going for. But it takes all of the courage, wherever you are. That moment after 10 days, I was so scared. But I went to that group and I spilled my beans. He told me it was password protected, that story. But then he led me, he said, you know what, I reckon your wife needs to hear some of that. And she was on the same retreat in a different part. And at 10:30 that night, I went back. I'd been bawling my eyes out for a long time. And he said, John's got something to say here. I'll leave you to it. Now, this is the moment where often men are rejected when they keep saying, tell us how you feel, and then you go, this is what I've done, and this is why I'm closed. Fortunately, Marion had accepted me and just in tears as I told her the real story of what had gone on. She said, come here, let me love you. I sat with that, and at that moment, again, one of those steps where the life changed, another bit of my heart became open to actually living with freedom, the way God has always designed me to live. We've been on adventures in New Guinea, across the Simpson, raised a family. Two questions as I leave. One is this. The question for me, we all have questions. There's three major questions that men have and women. One is, will I survive? Because I didn't survive well that day back when I was 7 years old. And so my question always is, whatever's happening economically, church-wise, whatever, will I survive this? And I've added that second part of that question for me is, how will I thrive here in this adventure? And in Psalm 139, verse 23 and 24, it says, I love this about the end of this psalm that touched me so deeply it changed my destiny. Search me, O God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. Point out anything that in me that offends you and lead me along the path of everlasting life. When I first read that, I always thought, I'm offensive to God completely. Like, I'm not consistent. I say I wanted to follow him, but I'm really pathetic when it comes to following through when it gets tough. But the offence is he's not offended at me. What he's saying is, he said, now he offends God that you can't actually let go of all that junk. I've designed you for more than that. John, just give me your anxious thoughts. Give me your sin. It's already been forgiven. I want you to live freely. It offends me that men sit around Australia in churches being so passive that it's just horrible. And he's going, I did not design you to just be a pew sitter that tries to do the right thing. I want you to live an adventurous, loving life. I want you to, and you can't do that, I know that. So ask me in, how about we do this together? How about we do this together? Because I know without the Holy Spirit you can't. And I'm not perfect. And he goes, I know that. Your feet are clay and everything else is pretty, it's wearing out. But your soul's designed for eternity. Will you say yes to me? And here's my last statement here. You might go, well, I don't work anymore. I'm not in full-time employment. I'm on the shelf. Don't believe the enemy's lie. Brett is my right-hand man over there. He's at 70, he must be 75 at least now, Brett. But at 75, he's actually busier than he's ever been, and he's doing more good for the kingdom than he's ever done because he's finally wise enough to go, I'm owning the stuff. I am imperfect. This gospel is not about one up and how I'm better than you. It's about I'm just a broken person that is actually renamed and reclaimed that I'm the Son of the God because of his goodness, his mercy, his kindness. You've got to know about this, guys, because you do not want to waste your one life here on earth by just being caught out by one thing that actually took hold of you and has shamed you into eternity. These are my 9 grandkids. They're all very compliant. None of them are compliant, and their parents blame me and Marianne, but I'm not taking that. I blame my parents, so it's okay. But part of my mission here at 60, just turned 67, is I want these young kids, as they grow up, and that's 3 years ago, and they're already, one of them nearly taking me on for tallness, but here it is. They have a life to live. My job is to go into bat for their eternity. I want to go, I'm going to live passionately. I'm going to own my mistakes. I'm going to do whatever it takes to see that you've got a really good chance of knowing Jesus before it all goes crazy in your life. You're protected right now. But there is a bastard called the enemy that will want to take you out and go, Christianity's rubbish. God doesn't really care. It's a mess. It's impossible. It doesn't make sense. Like in Ecclesiastes, it's all meaningless. Before that, I want to plant the seed of eternity in them and go, look at my eyes. Your mum's always telling you off, but I love you. And I love that little naughty bit in you. I want you to go on an adventure. I want you to find what God has designed you to do in your life. Go for it. I'm backing you. And God loves you, by the way. And God loves you, and I love you. No matter where you are, I want you, like that psalm, God knows where you are, far away from him or close, doesn't matter. He's tracking you. He's designed you for more than what you think. Don't listen to your mates. Don't go down the track of just living your life like you're rubbish. Allow God to go dictate who you are and who you're becoming. You've got an eternity to live. This is only entree. What will you do with the entree? It's not about what you do, it's who you're becoming. When you go home today, if you've got a wife, Does she know that she's deeply loved? Do you have that grandkid that's way away? Does she or he know that you love them, that you're after them, that you pray for them? Maybe that's all we can do. Tonight, I just want to finish by saying, I wasn't the smartest, I wasn't the quickest, but I've had the privilege of having some people around me that have just said, they've shown me this rebel with a cause called Jesus, who was not popular with the religious people because he said, I don't want you to be a religious group, I want you to be a group of people that love zealously and goes on an adventure to go, we need more people to know that deeply held and loved. Will you say yes? He never barges in. He never makes you do something. He never is abusive, like I was abused back then. He's saying, John, it's your choice. What's your choice? You want to come? I'm excited. I've got some stuff here. It doesn't matter what age. I want you to live life. Your choice. As you walk out the door, I'm sure you've got a meaningless world. Some part of that's not going well. I can nearly guarantee it. And I'm going, yep, that's just the reality. But here's the point. Last point, Brian. God is the creator of the sun. So when he invites us into his kingdom, it's not all meaningless. He's on a redemptive path. He's on a war path of redeeming his lost world. And he's above the sun. And I'm hedging my bets and saying, I'm going to go that way. I'm going to say yes to a God that's not under all the anxiety and all the terror that's going on. He says, I've come into your world. I know what it's like to live in the meaningless world. But I'm telling you, I'm for you. Full stop. I'm for you. Will you take hold of that this morning? Because the enemy is looking there at Crowther door going, just go back to your ordinary, boring life. He's saying, God's saying, will you stand up? Will you let me love you? Will you give me the worst part of you? Because I don't hold it against you. You hold it against yourself way more than I hold it against you. Will we say yes? Will we be part of changing the destiny of the next generation? Thank you.
Thank you for listening to John's Story with Jesus. Please visit our website for encouraging resources to support your Christian journey. You can also stay updated on our gatherings and sign up to receive our gathering posters. Thank you again, and God bless you.